They laughed at the quiet girl until the Alpha King bowed before her. It echoed in iron halls, rang across battlefields, and lived in the sharp voices of nobles who believed strength must always be seen and heard. Kings ruled by command. Queens ruled by display. Magic, when it existed, burned bright and wild, demanding attention. And because of this, no one noticed the quiet girl. She walked the stone corridors of the royal court with lowered eyes and calm steps. Her dresses were simple, her posture careful. She spoke only when spoken to, and even then her voice was soft, almost fragile. Many believed she lacked confidence. Others believed she lacked worth. The nobles laughed behind her back. She is barely there, they said. A shadow pretending to be human. Silence is her only talent. She heard them all, but she never reacted. Her name was Elara, though few used it. To most, she was only the quiet girl, a distant noble whose family line had faded long ago. Her parents were gone, lost to a sickness no healer could name. She remained in the court only because old blood still mattered in Eldoria, even when it was weak. Or so they thought. Elara learned early that silence could be armor. Words often invited pain, but quiet allowed her to observe. And she observed everything. The way the air shifted before storms, the way torches dimmed when she passed, the way ancient walls seemed to listen when she paused near them. Sometimes late at night she felt something stirring beneath her chest. Not fear. Not strength. Something older. Something patient. She did not understand it. She only knew it must remain hidden, because in Eldoria anything different was either controlled or destroyed. The day the Alpha King returned, the kingdom held its breath. His name was King Thorn, ruler of Eldoria, born of conquest and bound by an ancient force known as the Alpha Curse. It was said the curse gave him unmatched power, strength beyond men, command over beasts, and dominance that bent even magic to his will. But the price was steep. He could not feel softness. He could not trust tenderness. And love, if it ever existed in him, had long been buried beneath duty and blood. When his army marched through the gates, the city trembled. Crowds bowed low. Nobles rushed to display loyalty. Even the court mages lowered their eyes. Elara stood at the edge of the great hall as he entered. She did not bow immediately. Not because she was proud, but because something inside her reacted. The moment King Railthorn stepped onto the marble floor, the ancient feeling inside her awakened. It was like a deep breath after long sleep. Her heart remained calm, yet the air around her grew heavy, thick with unseen tension. The Alpha King felt it too. He paused. Just one step into the hall, his body stilled, his eyes, cold, sharp, and dangerous, moved across the crowd until they stopped on her. The quiet girl. She bowed then, slowly and properly, unaware of the shift she caused. The court laughed softly. She forgot herself, one noble whispered. Even silence makes mistakes, another said. But King Railthorn did not laugh. His curse stirred, restless and uneasy. Never before had his power hesitated. Never had it reacted to a single presence without command. And yet, something about her made the beast inside him pull back. He said nothing. The court assumed he had not noticed. They were wrong. Days passed, and rumors spread like smoke. Dark signs appeared at the borders of Eldoria. Crops failed without reason. Wolves gathered near villages but did not attack. Ancient stones cracked as if waking from long rest. The court panicked. They demanded answers. The mages searched old texts. Priests prayed to forgotten gods. Nobles argued, blaming one another, and slowly, quietly, attention turned toward Elara. She is cursed, someone said. She brings imbalance, another claimed. Silence hides danger. Whispers grew louder. Eyes followed her steps. The halls no longer felt safe. One evening she was summoned. The throne room was empty except for the Alpha King. No guards. No nobles. Alara stood at the center of the vast hall, feeling very small beneath the high ceilings and cold stone. King Railthorn sat on the throne, his presence filling the space like a storm held back by iron will. "You are afraid," he said. His voice was deep, controlled. She shook her head. "No, Your Majesty." He studied her closely. "You should be." She met his gaze, surprising them both. "Fear is loud," she said softly. "What I feel is awareness." Something passed through his eyes. Interest. Confusion. Perhaps even respect. "Speak freely," he ordered. She hesitated, then said, "I believe something old is waking. And it does not answer to force." Silence followed. The Alpha King leaned forward slightly. "Everything answers to force," she only said. "Some things wait for understanding." The curse inside him growled, offended. And yet, it did not strike her down. It did not bend her. It only watched.
"You will remain close," he decided, "until I understand what you are." Alara bowed.
"As you command." Magic alarms rang across the stone. The mages rushed from their chambers, terrified. The source was not the borders. It was not the forests. It was not the throne. It was Ilara's room. Stone cracked, light flickered. And deep beneath the castle, something ancient whispered her name. King Railthorn arrived first. He stood outside her door as the ground settled and silence returned. When he entered, he found her standing calmly, hands folded, eyes steady. "You are not frightened?" he observed. She nodded. "It has begun." "What has?"
She looked at him, her voice still gentle.
The kingdom laughed because they could not hear what was coming. He felt it then. The truth. And for the first time in his reign, the Alpha King realized the greatest power in Eldoria had never roared. It had waited. The castle of Eldoria did not sleep after that night. Whispers moved through the halls like cold wind. Servants crossed themselves in fear. Mages argued in low voices, afraid of being overheard by the stones themselves. The ancient wards had shaken, and everyone knew what that meant. Something old had awakened. And everyone wanted someone to blame. Ilara remained calm, though the world around her tightened like a closing fist. She was moved from her small chamber to a guarded wing near the inner court. The order came directly from King Railthorn himself. "She is not a prisoner," he told his guards, "but she does not leave." To the court, it sounded like mercy. To Ilara, it felt like the edge of a blade, careful, controlled, and dangerous. She spent her days walking the quiet gardens, watched by soldiers who did not know whether to fear her or protect her. Birds settled near her feet. The fountains ran softer when she passed. Even the guard noticed, though they never spoke of it. Inside her, the ancient presence continued to stir. It did not rush, it waited. King Railthorn watched her from a distance. He told himself it was duty. Strategy! Control! But the truth was more troubling. The alpha curse within him did not obey when she was near. It did not push him to dominate or command. Instead, it grew still, like a beast lowering its head, not in submission, but in attention. That had never happened before. He had ruled through fear, strength, and certainty. Enemies fell because they believed resistance was pointless. Allies followed because his power promised order. Alara did none of that. She did not challenge him. She did not praise him. She did not fear him. And somehow, that unsettled him more than open defiance. When the council demanded her removal, he refused. "She stays," he said simply. The nobles protested. "She brings instability," they argued. "She threatens the balance," they warned. "She should be tested, restrained, or sent away." Railthorn ended the debate with a single glance. "No one touches her." The room fell silent. Elara never knew how close she came to destruction that day.
One evening, as the sky turned dark and the first stars appeared, King Ralthorn summoned her again.
This time it was not to the throne room. It was to the old library. The library was older than the crown itself. Dust-covered shelves rose like stone pillars filled with books written in dead languages. Few entered it anymore. Fewer still understood its contents. Elara stood near a table where ancient scrolls lay open. "You can read them," Ralthorn said, not as a question. She nodded slowly. "Some of them." How? She hesitated. "They speak differently." He frowned. "Books do not speak." "These do," she replied gently. He studied her, searching for mockery or deception. He found none. "Then tell me," he said, "what is happening to my kingdom?" Elara touched one of the scrolls, her fingers light. "Eldoria was built on borrowed power," she said. "Long ago, kings bound themselves to forces they did not fully understand. Those forces demand balance. And you believe I am unbalanced?" he asked. She met his gaze. "I believe you were never given a choice." Ralthorn turned away, jaw tight. "My strength keeps this land alive." "Yes," she said, "but it is costing you something." Silence stretched between them. "For centuries," she continued, "quiet magic was sealed away. Not destroyed, forgotten. It grows when ignored. And you are its vessel," he concluded. Elara lowered her eyes. "Not by desire," he exhaled slowly. "Then why you?" She looked up again, and for the first time her voice shook. "Because someone had to carry what others feared. The Alpha King felt something crack, not in stone, but inside himself." The court did not wait. Days later, without the king's approval, the High Council ordered a public test. Elara was summoned to the central court at dawn. Magic circles were carved into the floor. Priests stood ready. Nobles gathered like vultures, eager to see proof of her danger or her weakness. King Ralthorn arrived too late to stop it. Elara stood at the center, surrounded by symbols meant to bind and reveal hidden power. "Do you resist?" a priest demanded. Elara shook her head. "No." The test began. Magic pressed against her like weight. The ancient presence inside her stirred, not in anger, but in warning. The runes flickered, then cracked. Gasps filled the court. The power did not explode. It did not attack. Instead, it spread outward, calm and heavy, like deep water. Torches dimmed. Voices fell silent. Every person felt it, a sense of being seen, measured, and remembered. The Alpha King stepped forward, his curse rising in response, ready to crush whatever threatened his rule. But the moment his power touched hers, it stopped. The court watched in disbelief as the Alpha King froze, unable to command, unable to dominate. Elara looked at him, eyes wide. "I never wanted this," she whispered. The power receded. The runes shattered. The test ended in silence. Afterward, the nobles were terrified. The priests fled, and the Alpha King did something no ruler had ever done. He apologized. Not publicly, not loudly, but in the quiet of a stone corridor where only the walls listened. "I failed you," he said. Elara blinked, stunned. "You owe me nothing." "I owe you truth," he replied. "And protection." She studied him, searching for falsehood. She found only weariness. "I do not want to rule," she said. "I do not want power," she added. "I only want peace." Ralthorn nodded slowly. "Then we want the same thing." For a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Understanding, longing, and the fragile beginning of trust. But peace never came easily to Eldoria. That night, the ancient enemy beyond the borders finally moved. And deep beneath the castle, the old magic whispered again, not to Alara alone this time, but to the Alpha King as well. The war did not arrive with fire, it arrived with silence. Villages near the northern border went quiet first. Messengers returned pale, unable to explain what they had seen. Crops stood untouched, yet no people remained to harvest them. Doors were open. Fire's cold, but Prince led nowhere. The enemy did not destroy. It erased. King Relthorn rode at the head of his army, armor dark, expression harder than stone. The Alpha curse surged within him, eager for battle, promising victory through strength. For years, this power had never failed him. But now, it trembled. Alara rode behind the main guard, protected but not hidden. The land reacted to her presence. The wind slowed. The ground felt steady beneath her horse's hooves, as if recognizing her. She felt the ancient magic clearly now. It was no longer asleep. It was waiting! The first clash never came. When the army reached the border valley, there was no enemy to strike. Only a vast shadow spread across the land, like dusk without sunset. Sound faded. Commands carried no echo. Soldiers panicked. Railthorn raised his voice, pushing his power outward, forcing order. The Alpha Curse roared in response, demanding dominance. And then, it broke! Pain tore through him as the curse twisted, feeding on itself, his vision blurred. The ground dropped beneath his feet. Alara felt it instantly. She rushed forward, ignoring the guards. "Stop!" she said, placing her hand near his arm without touching. "Do not force it." Railthorn clenched his jaw. "If I stop, they fall." "They fall if you continue." The curse fought him, but for the first time in his life, the Alpha King listened to someone else. He lowered his power. The shadow paused. Not gone. Just watching. They retreated to the ancient fortress at the valley's edge, a place built long before Eldoria had a crown. The walls were carved with symbols older than language. Alara walked the halls alone that night. The stones whispered to her openly now. Die, they told her the truth. The ancient enemy was not a creature of hunger or rage. It was balance made cruel by neglect. Long ago, when kings bound themselves to dominant power, something else had been sealed away to keep the scales even. That something was her magic. Quiet magic. Magic that did not command, but endured. And now the seal was breaking. Alara understood the cost. Balance always demanded sacrifice. Railthorn found her at dawn, standing before the oldest carving in the fortress. "You are leaving," he said. She did not deny it. "I must." "No," he said sharply. "I will not allow it." "This is not something you can command." The Alpha Curse stirred, angry at her defiance. But beneath it, Railthorn felt fear, not of losing power, but of losing her. "What will it take?" he asked. "Tell me what to give." She studied him quietly. "You already know." He swallowed. "The crown!" "Not the medal," she said softly. "The meaning." For his entire life, he had been taught that ruling meant standing above all others. To kneel was to fail. And yet every truth he had learned since meeting her had told him the same thing. Strength without mercy was empty. "I do not know how," he admitted. Alara stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then learn." The enemy struck that night. The shadow poured into the valley, swallowing torches, draining sound, bending fear into something heavy and crushing. Soldiers fell to their knees, unable to move. Railthorn stood before them, forcing his failing power forward, blood at the corner of his mouth. It was not enough. Alara moved past him. "No," he said, reaching for her. She turned back once. "Trust me." She walked into the darkness. The ancient magic rose around her, not violent, not loud, but endless. The shadow reacted, pressing harder, testing her will. It demanded submission. She refused. Instead, she offered balance. Her strength began to drain, flowing outward, restoring what had been taken. The shadow resisted, then wavered. But it was too much. Elara fell. Ralthorn felt it like a blade through his chest. Something inside him broke completely. The Alpha King dropped to his knees. Not from force. From choice! He bowed his head before her fallen form. I release it, he said. The dominance, the curse, take it! The ancient enemy paused. The land held its breath. For the first time in history, a king did not command power. He surrendered it. The shadow recoiled, its purpose fulfilled. Silence returned. When dawn came, the valley stood whole again. The enemy was gone. The soldiers lived. But Elara did not wake. Railthorn knelt beside her, unmoving, his crown heavy and useless in his hands. The ancient magic whispered one final truth. Balance had been restored. But the cost was not yet paid. He lifted her carefully, his voice breaking for the first time. If she does not return, he said, then neither will the king I was. And far beneath the earth, something answered. Not an enemy, but a choice. The castle was quiet. The war was over, but the halls felt empty. The sun shone through high windows, casting soft light on stone walls, but no warmth filled the rooms. King Railthorn sat alone in the great hall. His crown lay heavy on the table before him, but it felt like a weight without meaning. The Alpha Curse, the power that had once made him strong, was gone. He had surrendered it to save the kingdom and the quiet girl he loved. But now, she was silent, sleeping. Elara lay in the chamber deep inside the fortress, untouched by time. Her breathing was calm, but her eyes did not open. The ancient magic inside her held her in a deep rest, neither alive nor gone, the cord whispered. Some hoped she would wake. Others feared she never would. Ralthorn did not hope. He believed. Days passed like slow rivers. The king walked the gardens where Elara once wandered. The birds sang softly. The wind carried memories. Every corner of the castle seemed to hold a piece of her silence. He remembered their last moments together. How she had given everything, her power, her life, to save the land and the man who once ruled it with iron and fire. He had bowed to her, not out of weakness, but from respect and love. And now he waited. One evening, a soft light appeared in the chamber. Ralthorn was there. He knelt beside her, placing his hand lightly on her wrist. The ancient magic hummed softly beneath his fingers. Elara, he whispered, wake. The room grew still. The light grew brighter. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened her eyes. They were deep and calm, like the quiet before dawn. She looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. I am here, she said softly. The king rose, tears in his eyes. The days that followed were not easy. Elara's magic was still fragile. The curse had been broken, but the bond between her and the king was new and delicate. They both needed to learn how to rule differently, without fear or dominance. The court watched carefully, some nobles whispered, uneasy about the quiet girl who now stood beside the Alpha King, not beneath him, but equal. Elara did not seek power. She sought peace. Railthorn and Elara walked the kingdom together, listening to the people and the land. They healed old wounds. They rebuilt broken villages. They spoke with ancient spirits who had long been silent. The king learned to listen. The girl who once was ignored taught the kingdom how to hear. Power no longer meant force. It meant understanding. One day, standing before the great council, Elara spoke. True strength, she said, is not in ruling over others, but in standing with them. The nobles were silent. The king nodded. The people began to believe. Their love grew slowly, like a river finding its path. No loud declarations. Just quiet moments shared in shadow and light. A touch, a look. The kingdom of Eldoria changed. The ancient enemy was gone. The curse was broken. And the quiet girl who had once been laughed at became the queen of hearts and hope. The last scene was a twilight sky. Relthorn and Alara stood on the castle balcony, looking out over the land. Stars shone above. He wrapped his arm around her. In that moment, silence spoke louder than any crown.